The night my son-in-law-to-be said, "Once we're married, she'll cut off her whole family, and she'll thank me for it later." I nearly missed my exit off Route 33. For a second, I thought the radio had said it, some line from a show I wasn't paying attention to. I glanced at him in the rearview mirror. Nathan Cole was leaning back against the leather seat, scrolling his phone, talking to somebody like he was discussing lunch plans. It wasn't casual. Not really. He just described reshaping my daughter's entire life like it was a home renovation. I kept both hands on the wheel. I kept my eyes on the road. I didn't say a word. But I heard every syllable, and that moment changed something in me that never quite changed back. My name is Walter Briggs. I'm 59 years old, and I've spent my whole life in Lancaster, Ohio, about 30 minutes southeast of Columbus. For 34 years, I worked as a machinist at a tool and die shop off Memorial Drive, the kind of job where your hands remember things your mind forgets. Steady work, good union job. Nothing glamorous, but it paid for a house, 2 kids, and more Little League uniforms than I care to count. I retired 18 months ago. That was supposed to be the finish line. Instead, it felt like somebody pulled the chair out from under me. Turns out retirement isn't the fishing and relaxing brochure everybody promises you. After 4 months of reorganizing the garage twice, mowing a lawn that didn't need mowing, and asking my wife Carol what she wanted for dinner, so often she finally told me to go find a hobby before she found me a grave. I needed something to do, not for money. We were fine. I just needed somewhere to point myself in the mornings. That's how I ended up driving part-time for a private car service out of Dublin, Ohio, mostly ferrying corporate types to downtown Columbus. Bankers, attorneys, tech guys, the kind of people who'd rather have the same driver every week than roll the dice on a stranger. 3 mornings a week, sometimes an airport run on the weekend. Easy money, easy hours, and it got me out of Carol's hair, which I think she appreciated more than the money did. Here's the part that still makes me shake my head. Nathan became one of my regulars for almost 6 weeks before I had any idea who he actually was. At first, he was just a guy in a gray suit, 34 maybe, the kind of watch that cost more than my first car, always on a call before he even shut the door behind him. One Tuesday morning, he said a name that stopped me cold. Rachel. My daughter's name. I nearly rear-ended the car in front of us, trying not to stare at him in the mirror. Over the next few minutes, it clicked into place, piece by piece. The voice, the company he worked for, the stories about a wedding in October. It was him, Nathan Cole, my daughter's fiancé, the man she was set to marry in 4 months. The strange part? He had no idea who I was. In fairness, there was a reason for that. Back in the spring, I'd had a bad reaction to a filling that got infected, ended up needing oral surgery, and my dentist had me wearing a surgical mask for weeks during recovery because I was self-conscious about the swelling. I wore it to work too, under a company ball cap pulled low. Most passengers barely glance at their driver anyway. Nathan certainly never had. Even at the 2 family cookouts he'd come to, he hadn't paid me much mind, not rude exactly, just the kind of man who walks into a room and somehow makes it revolve around him. He remembered the stories that made him look good. He remembered his own accomplishments. Everybody else's? Not so much. At first, honestly, I thought it was funny. Every Tuesday and Thursday morning, I'd pick up my future son-in-law and drive him downtown while he sat 3 feet behind me, completely unaware he was talking to his own father-in-law. I told Carol about it one night on the back porch. She about choked on her iced tea. "You're joking." "Wish I was." "He really doesn't recognize you?" "Not even a little?" "Not a bit." She laughed so hard her eyes watered. "Walter, that's terrible." "You're smiling." Because it's funny." And a little sad. It was funny. For a while. But the longer I spent around Nathan, the more uneasy I got. It wasn't anything dramatic. That would have almost been easier to point at. It was small things. The way he talked down to the valet at his building. The way he'd cut people off mid-sentence like their thoughts weren't worth finishing. The way conversations always found their way back to him, like water running downhill. One morning I had another passenger sharing the ride, an older gentleman heading to the same office park. He mentioned his granddaughter's swim meet. Nathan steered the conversation straight into his own college golf career before the man finished his second sentence. Never noticed or never cared. I told myself none of that made him a bad person. Plenty of successful men are full of themselves. Plenty of people grow out of it. Rachel loved him, and that mattered. My daughter wasn't naive. She taught middle school science, spent her days managing 32 12-year-olds and their parents, and she'd learned the hard way not to trust easily after a rough engagement in her 20s that never made it to the altar. So I tried not to judge Nathan too fast. Then came the Thursday morning that changed everything. It was raining, the kind of steady October drizzle that makes the wipers squeak more than they clear. Traffic was crawling on 33. Nathan's phone rang. He answered before the second ring. "Yeah," he said. A pause. Then a laugh. A long one, the kind that turned my stomach before I even knew why. "No, seriously. Once we're married, she'll cut off her whole family, and she'll thank me for it later." The car went quiet, at least on my end of it. I kept my eyes straight ahead. Maybe there was context I wasn't getting. Maybe it was a joke, some dark corporate humor I didn't understand. Then he kept going. "I know her. She just needs the right push." I clenched my jaw. Whoever was on the other end said something I couldn't make out. "Look, right now she's still tied to Lancaster. Family, friends, the school, all of it." A pause. Then the line that iced my blood. "The further she gets from all that, the easier she is to manage." Something shifted in me right then. Not anger. Not yet. Something worse. Recognition. Because I'd heard words shaped like that before, years back, from a man who wanted control dressed up as love, a man Rachel had eventually walked away from before things got serious. Nathan kept talking, casual as ever, like he was planning a weekend trip instead of describing how he intended to rearrange another human being's entire life without her. By the time we hit his building, I had a knot in my stomach the size of a fist. He ended the call, grabbed his briefcase, opened the door, then leaned back in for a second. "See you Thursday, Walt." "Yep, have a good one," I said. My voice came out normal. Somehow. He walked off toward the entrance and disappeared inside. I sat there for a long minute with the engine running and the rain sliding down the glass, trying to convince myself I was overreacting. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe I'd only caught half of something. Then another thought hit me. Nathan never once said we. Not our plans, not what he and Rachel had decided together. Everything he described had been his decision, his timeline, his plan, his strategy. And for the first time, I wondered whether the man my daughter was about to marry saw her as a partner or as a project. I didn't tell Rachel what I'd heard. Not that day, not that week either. For 4 days, I carried it around like a stone in my coat pocket. Every time my phone buzzed with her name, I almost said something. Every time she texted about seating charts or cake tastings, I almost let it slip. Then I'd stop myself, delete the draft, and tell myself to slow down and think. After 31 years of marriage, Carol can read me like a weather forecast. That Friday night we were out back, nothing fancy, just 2 folding chairs, a couple glasses of sweet tea, and the cicadas going in the tree line behind the fence. She looked over at me. "You're still stuck on Nathan." I sighed. Maybe I heard it wrong. "You don't sound like a man who thinks he heard it wrong." I can't stop replaying it. Carol set her glass down on the little table between us. "What exactly is bothering you?" I stared out at the yard for a second. It wasn't what he said. It was how he said it. She nodded slowly, like that confirmed something. There'd been no hesitation in his voice. No doubt, no debate. Nathan had talked about Rachel's future like it was already settled, like she was a passenger in a car somebody else was driving. Carol was quiet a moment. Then, "Pay attention," she said. "To what?" "Pay attention before you start accusing somebody of something." Good advice. Probably better than I deserved, because if I'm honest, part of me already wanted to hate him. Not for anything he'd done yet, because I was scared. And fear can turn a father into a dangerous man if you let it. So I decided to watch. Just watch. Nothing else. The following week, I picked Nathan up outside his building near Bridge Park in Dublin. Same routine, dark suit, coffee in hand, phone already against his ear before he'd even settled into the seat. "Marcus, listen to me," he said before I'd even pulled away from the curb. Didn't so much as nod hello. I drove. He talked. And the longer the drive went, the more interesting it got. I already accepted the offer. A pause. "No, Rachel doesn't know yet." I glanced in the mirror. Nathan was staring out the side window, relaxed, completely unaware. The offer. What offer? A few minutes later, I got my answer. Denver's perfect. My stomach dropped. Denver, Colorado. Nearly 1,400 miles from Lancaster. Another pause. Once we're married, moving out there will make sense to everybody. I nearly missed the exit ramp, not out of anger, because Rachel had never once mentioned Denver, not one time. That Sunday she came for dinner, the way she did most weeks. She brought a broccoli salad, Carol made pot roast. The Ohio State game played low on the TV in the front room, normal, comfortable. The kind of evening I'd always hoped my daughter would still want, even grown and about to be married. At one point, Rachel was helping me clear plates. I kept my tone light. "How's the wedding stuff coming?" She smiled. "Busy." Finally locked down the photographer. "That's good." A few seconds passed. Then I asked, "So what happens after the wedding? You two staying in Lancaster?" She laughed. Of course. That answer hit me harder than I expected. I tried not to react. "You've never thought about moving?" She shook her head. "My whole life is here. Besides, Nathan loves Ohio." I nearly dropped the plate in my hand. I didn't sleep that night. Lay there staring at the ceiling fan, turning slow circles above me. Around 2 in the morning, Carol rolled over. "You still awake?" "Yeah." "You believe her?" "Completely." "Then maybe Nathan hasn't told her yet." Neither of us said anything else, because we both understood what it meant if he hadn't. Over the next couple weeks, patterns started showing up. Nothing loud. Small things, the kind most people never catch. Nathan kept referring to decisions like they were already finalized. "We're buying, we're relocating, we're doing this." But nothing had actually been discussed. Nothing had been decided, at least not with Rachel in the room. One Tuesday, he spent almost the entire ride on the phone with a realtor. Not looking at homes in Ohio. Looking at homes in a suburb outside Denver called Highlands Ranch. He read off school district ratings like he was reciting stats for a fantasy football draft, never once mentioning that the woman he planned to move there had a classroom full of kids 2 miles from where we sat, a mother 2 towns over, and a whole life she'd built brick by brick since she was 18 years old. Another morning, he mentioned a company relocation bonus. Then, almost as an afterthought, he said something to whoever was on the line that I've replayed more than anything else. "She'll be upset for a week, maybe 2. Then she'll get over it. She always does. She always does." Like it had happened before. Like this was a pattern he'd run on somebody and it had worked. I started keeping a small notebook in my glove compartment. Dates, times, what I overheard. Not because I wanted ammunition, because I needed to know if I was imagining a problem or watching one build in real time. 2 weeks became 3. 3 became almost a month. I want to be honest about something, because people are going to ask, and they'd be right to. Why didn't I just record him? Why didn't I just tell Rachel the second I heard it? The truth is, I tried, once. I propped my phone against the dash on a Thursday morning, screen dark, recording audio only. Ohio's a one-party consent state, so legally I was covered. But my phone was old, the microphone half shot from 3 years in a work truck, and when I played it back that night, all I had was static, road noise, and maybe one garbled word that could have been Denver or could have been nothing at all. Useless. I tried once more the following week and the battery died 20 minutes into the drive because I'd forgotten to charge it, too distracted watching Nathan in the mirror to think straight about anything else. As for telling her outright, I kept picturing how it would land. My daughter, hearing secondhand that her own father had been secretly driving her fiancé around for weeks, eavesdropping, taking notes. Even if every word was true, I knew Rachel. She'd hear spying before she heard protecting. I'd seen it happen to a buddy of mine years back. Told his daughter the truth about a man too soon, too bluntly, and she cut her own father out for 8 months over it. I wasn't willing to risk that on a hunch, even a strong one. So I kept driving, kept listening, kept writing it down, waiting for something solid enough that she couldn't wave it away, and something calm enough that she wouldn't feel ambushed. That solid ground came sooner than I expected. Rachel and Nathan's engagement party was set for the second Saturday of that month at a banquet hall out near Easton, the kind of event with a string quartet and a slideshow, and Nathan's business partners in attendance alongside our family and hers. Carol and I got there early. I wore my one good suit, the navy one I'd worn to both my kids' graduations. Rachel looked beautiful, glowing in a way that made my chest ache with how much I loved her and how much I was terrified for her at the same time. Dinner went fine. Toast went fine. Nathan's father said some kind words about family. Then, near the end of the night, Nathan tapped his glass with a fork and stood up. That same easy confidence I'd watched from the back seat for 2 months now, on full display in front of a room of 80 people. I wanted to make an announcement, he said, smiling around the room. Rachel and I are so excited to be starting our next chapter together in Denver, Colorado. Applause broke out, immediately, automatically. Then it started fading, because Rachel wasn't clapping. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't moving. She looked confused. "I'm sorry, what?" she said. Nathan noticed. His smile flickered. Just barely, but I caught it. Rachel leaned closer to him. "What are you talking about?" The microphone picked it up. The room went dead silent. Nathan laughed, a little too fast. "The move." "What move?" A few guests exchanged glances. Nathan tried again. "The job opportunity." Rachel stared at him. Then 4 words came out of her that changed the entire night. "What job opportunity?" Nothing. Total silence. You could have heard a fork hit a tablecloth from across the room. Nathan glanced around, and for the first time all evening, he looked unsure of himself. That was my moment. I stood up, slowly. No big speech planned. No shouting, no scene, not yet. Just a 59-year-old father standing beside a banquet table. Nathan looked at me, then looked again, longer this time. I watched recognition crawl across his face, piece by piece, like a puzzle finally clicking together. The voice, the face, the name. "Walt?" he said. I nodded. "That's right." His face went pale. A few guests looked confused. Rachel looked even more confused than that. Nathan opened his mouth. Nothing came out. I kept my voice level. "Rachel, before anybody makes any more announcements, I think there are a few questions worth asking." Nobody interrupted. Not even Nathan. "Questions about what?" Rachel asked quietly. I looked at her. Only her. Never him. "When did Nathan tell you he'd accepted a job in Denver?" Rachel turned to Nathan. He said nothing. That silence answered plenty. "When did he tell you he'd already been looking at neighborhoods out there? School districts, home listings, all of it?" Still nothing. "When did he tell you he'd started planning your move without you?" The room felt frozen. Nathan finally stepped forward. "Walt, this isn't the place." I looked at him. "Isn't it?" That landed harder than I meant it to. A few people shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Rachel crossed her arms, and when she spoke again, her voice had gone quiet in a way that was somehow louder than shouting. "When were you going to tell me?" Nathan swallowed. "I was going to." "When?" Nothing. The silence stretched long enough that it hurt to sit inside it. Nathan tried to pivot. "It was supposed to be a surprise." Rachel shook her head. "A surprise trip is a surprise, Nathan. Moving across the country isn't." The room stayed completely silent. She kept going. "You kept saying our future. Every decision was yours." I reached into my jacket pocket and handed Rachel several printed pages. Nothing secret, nothing illegal. Copies of everything I'd verified over the past month, mostly through public listings and one honest conversation with the realtor Nathan had been calling, who confirmed dates without realizing what he was confirming. Job offer details, housing research, planning timelines, dates, facts. Rachel read through them slowly, page after page, each one telling the same story, a future designed without her in the room. Nathan started talking, trying to explain, trying to justify, trying to reframe it. But the more he talked, the worse it got, because every explanation revealed the same thing underneath it. He hadn't asked, he hadn't discussed it, he had simply decided. Finally, Rachel looked up. There were tears in her eyes, but not the kind I expected. Not heartbreak, clarity, the painful kind. "You never stopped saying our future." Her voice cracked slightly, "but every decision in it was yours." Nathan opened his mouth again. She didn't let him finish. "I loved you," she said quietly. "I know," Nathan answered. For the first time all night, he sounded like he meant something. "Maybe he did." Rachel nodded once. "I think I did too." Then she looked straight at him. "But you never respected me." Those words hit me harder than anything else that night, because they were true. Nathan wasn't a monster. He hadn't committed a crime. He probably did love her, in whatever way he understood love. The real problem was simpler and sadder than that. He liked being in charge more than he liked being someone's partner. She slid the ring off her finger, slow and steady, and set it in his palm. Nobody in that room said a word. 10 minutes later, Nathan walked out alone. No scene, no security called, no dramatic exit. Just a man carrying the weight of choices he'd made entirely on his own. The weeks that followed weren't easy on anybody. Rachel was hurt, embarrassed, angry, and for a while some of that anger landed squarely on me. I understood it. Trust takes time to rebuild, and so does forgiveness, even between a father and daughter who love each other. But slowly, things got better. 3 months later, Rachel enrolled in a graduate certificate program in school counseling she'd been putting off for years. She put a down payment on a small house of her own on the east side of Lancaster. Nothing extravagant, just hers. And for the first time in a long while, she looked genuinely excited about what was ahead of her instead of anxious about it. One Sunday afternoon, she came over for dinner, same as always. While we were clearing the table afterward, she looked over at me and smiled. "You know, Dad." "What?" "You were kind of insufferable through all that." I laughed. "Just insufferable?" "Extremely insufferable." "That's fair." She bumped my shoulder with hers, the way she used to when she was 12. Then she added, quieter, "But thank you. That was enough. More than enough." Looking back, I've come to understand something I wish I'd learned decades earlier. For most of my life, I thought protecting my kids meant fixing every problem before it reached them. It doesn't work that way. Sometimes protecting the people you love means handing them the truth, as gently and as fully as you can, and trusting them to decide what to do with it. If you've ever sat on the truth because telling it might cost you a relationship you couldn't stand to lose, you already know how heavy that kind of waiting can be. Sometimes it's worth carrying anyway. Thanks for listening to my story, and to my family. If you're watching this, I love you more than any of these words could ever say. Sometimes love shows up quietly, in the front seat of a car nobody notices, in a father willing to wait and watch instead of rushing to judge. Real protection isn't controlling someone's path for them. It's handing them the truth and trusting their own hands to hold it. Watching Rachel choose herself reminds us that walking away from the wrong love always opens room for the right life to begin. A small note for you. This story was written and fictionalized by AI for entertainment purposes, while still hoping to carry a genuine, positive life lesson to you.